Hello, I'm going to talk about my 4 different teaching strategies for 8th grade science, and specifically, we are talking about heat transfer and specific heat for this assignment. So, the first that I did for instructor centered was a lecture, and the reason why I chose this one is it's not something that I usually do in my classroom, but I do think that it's valuable. And for me, what this looks like is they start off with a bell ringer. Teacher delivers the lesson using visuals, example problems, video clips. Students fill in notes on in our district, it's iPads, while the teacher is talking. And then at the end of it, they will be working on practice problems at the board, and their exit ticket is 5 simple questions recapping everything that they learned, and they are to be able to answer that with 100% accuracy to make sure that they actually grasp the concept of the lesson. The next one I did for interactive learning was group projects. This is something that I do a lot in my classroom. This is actually a really fun lesson. I enjoy doing this. It has both a virtual and an in-class format that you can use. I got this actually from the previous science teacher. I thought that this was a really cool idea, and it's been fun to implement. So this is an escape room. So they have different types of assessment questions. As you can see, there's 4 different puzzles, and each of them reveal a code. So they have to be able to answer those questions correctly in order to solve the puzzle, get the code, move on to the next part. And it really makes these kids think, and it's good to see them interacting with each other and really using their notes from previous days, labs from previous days to solve the application questions for specific heat and for heat transfer. And as you can see on this, I've included the student instructions and kind of a short synopsis. The next one is individualized, and for this I chose computerized instruction. I really like doing virtual labs with my students, especially if they're out of the classroom. This is a great thing for distance learning, is what I've found, especially for science. This one is they take insulators of different types, and then they see which one's going to be the best based on their experimental design. They design their own experiment, they graph, they actually run the experiment online via a house simulation using 3 different types of insulation. It takes them through the entire scientific method. And then lastly, there's 2 recap quizzes which recap the lesson. This was something that I did last year with my kids online, and it really helped them review for their test. And I had really high engagement on this one. And then this is the one that I use the most often, which is labs. So this is one of my favorite labs, and we actually are talking heat transfer and conduction down an aluminum tray that they make, and they are timing how quickly the heat transfers through a given substance. We talk about different things that we could use other than aluminum. What are some other metals that may transfer heat more efficiently? And they kind of get to design their own project, and they actually then test it with aluminum to see how fast that actually happens by melting chocolate chips at different distances away from a heat source. So one thing with this assignment that I seem to struggle with the most was, if you look up here, is instructor-centered planning. And this is something that I don't do a lot in my classroom. I think it's very hard to keep, especially middle school students, engaged. But that was my hardest lesson to come up with. One thing that I did take away from this assignment, though, is that we have several different ways of planning and delivering the same material. As you can see, I have 4 drastically different ways, and we just have to figure out which way works best for the students that we have. And one thing that I can say, taking into consideration that this week has been a little bit crazy in education, my biggest like concern with COVID is that we're going to live down here in this computerized instruction and finding lessons to teach online.